जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी।
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 जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी। जय कुंज बिहारी। जय कुंज बिहारी।
श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
गोपाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है। नंदलाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
गोपाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
नंदलाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है। गोपाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है। नंदलाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
गोपाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है। नंदलाला हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
जय नंदलाला जय गोपाला जय नंदलाला जय जय।
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 वृंदावन में देनु चरावे माधव मदन मुरारी। माधव मदन मुरारी।
वृंदावन में धेनु चरावे माधव मदन मुरारी। माधव मदन मुरारी।
वृंदावन में धेनु चरावे माधव मदन मुरारी। माधव मदन मुरारी।
वृंदावन में धेनु चरावे माधव मदन मुरारी। माधव मदन मुरारी।
मधुर मुरलिया जब भी बजावे हर ले सुध बुध साले।
मधुर मुरलिया जब हे बजावे हर ले सुध बुध सारी।
मधुर मुरलिया जब भी बजावे हर ले सुध बुध साले। ओ हर ले सुध बुध साले। श्री राधे गोविंदा मन बजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
श्री राधे गोविंदा मन बजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
जय नंदलाला जय गोपाला जय नंदलाला जय जय।
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 श्री राधे गोविंदा मन बजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
श्री राधे गोविंदा मन बजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
श्री राधे गोविंदा मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है।
मन भजले हरि का प्यारा नाम है। शिव 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 शंभो। शिव 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 शंभो। भो शिव 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 शंभो। शिव 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 शंभो। शिव 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 शंभो।
शिव 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 शंभो शिव 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 शम्भो
महादेव शम्भो महादेव शम्भो
महादेव शम्भो महादेव शम्भो
महादेव शम्भो महादेव शम्भो
महादेव शम्भो महादेव शम्भो
शिव 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 शम्भो शिव 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 शम्भो
महादेव शम्भो महादेव शम्भो
महादेव शम्भो महादेव शम्भो
महादेव शम्भो महादेव शम्भो
महादेव शम्भो महादेव शम्भो
शिव 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 शम्भो शिव 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 शम्भो शिव 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 शम्भो शिव 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 शम्भो ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः
Welcome to Satsang, everyone. There was a question that came up as I was walking into Satsang that I thought was a beautiful place to start, and then we will take other questions as well. I know there was a young woman from last night who had a question that we said we would begin with today as well. So the question that came up as I was coming in was, my son is a scientist, and he says, what's the point of believing in God? If I'm a good person and I do good things, why does it matter if I believe in God? Isn't it enough to be a good person and do good things? So it depends what the goal is. If the goal of life is just to be a good person and just to do good things, then absolutely that's enough. And it's certainly better than being one of those people who claims to believe in God, but in God's name does all sorts of horrible things. Much better to be someone who doesn't believe in God, but is a good person doing good things, than someone who says they believe in God, but nonetheless is a bad person doing bad things. On the other hand, there's an even better option. And the reason that having a connection with God is a better option is that the goal of our life is not just to be a good person and do good things. The goal of our life is to understand who we are, to know the self. It's not just do good things. The doing of good things stems from an awareness of who we are. There's many reasons to do good things. We can do good things because I'm afraid of the consequences if I don't. So in America, for example, where they have cameras at intersections, you'll see people stopping at a red light in the middle of the night. There's nobody around. There's no traffic coming. And frequently when I'm in the car with people from India, it's always a subject that people laugh about of, my God, look at this. Here we are. It's 11 o'clock at night. There's nobody on the road. Nonetheless, these people stop at the red light. And to a lot of people who have lived and grown up on Indian roads, that's inconceivable. I mean, here they barely stop at red lights when you don't have, a highway full of other cars and people coming in every direction. The idea of stopping at a red light, even though there's no one around, no oncoming traffic, is something that for those of us raised in a culture all about do the right thing or you're going to get punished. It's not that we stop at the red light because we really think it's dangerous if we don't. But it's so deeply ingrained in us, thou shalt not break the law. Now there's cameras, you could be caught, oh my God, there must be a policeman hiding, lurking somewhere. So we may do the right thing, but it's out of a fear of, I'm going to get a ticket. It's not worth going through the red light, saving 2 minutes and ending up with a traffic violation. So that's one reason we do good things. A lot of people do good things because we talk about a law of karma. Well, if I do something that's good, good things are going to happen to me. Another reason we do them. And none of these reasons are wrong. It's a good reason to follow the rules. It's a good reason to want good things to happen to you rather than bad things to happen to you. But on the highest and deepest level, the reason that we should be doing good things in life, the reason that we should be a good person in life, is because we know who we are. Because who we are is an embodiment of the divine, an embodiment of compassion, an embodiment of love, an embodiment of consciousness, an embodiment of oneness, an embodiment of peace. And so if I just am a good person, meaning I'm honest, I'm helpful, I'm generous, and I do good things, that doesn't necessarily give me any clarity of who I am or why I'm here. And ultimately that's the point of life, is to know who am I and why am I here. And what's this all about? I mean, we know on the deepest level that really it's not all about how much money can we make. That really it's not all about how big can our house be, how many cars can we have. On a deep level, we all know that. But what is it really about then? Who am I really? If I'm not my body that keeps changing, if I'm not my titles, if I'm not my bank account, if I'm not my relationships or my career, who am I? And it's our connection with God that gives us that. I don't mean necessarily the dogma. I don't mean that it's our religion that lays out 1, 2, 3, here's who you are. I'm not worried about that. But through being connected to the presence of the divine, we are connected to that which is real, that which is sacred, that which is holy, that which is one in the universe. Otherwise, we live our lives as separate beings. And okay, so I'm a separate good being over here doing good things for all of you separate beings sitting there. And that's one way we could live. But it's not the highest and the deepest way we could live. Certainly better than killing each other. But there's a step deeper and higher, which is, can we sit here and realize that ultimately we're one? Can we sit here and realize that ultimately the spirit that flows through me is the same as the spirit that flows through you? That ultimately we are waves of the same ocean. That's where we're going. And so it's not so much a matter of just believing in God as it is about connecting with God. Just believing in God is an important first step, but it's not the end. We don't believe in God just to believe in God. We believe in God in the presence of something, the presence of that being, so that we can connect. And that's ultimately what it's about. And so, if you can take that step from just living a good life to saying, okay, this is all done. I figured out the how to be a good person thing. I figured out the how to do good things thing. And I'm set there. I'm a nice person. I'm a good person. I'm a caring person. But can I go deeper? Can I actually understand who I am? That's not the doer of the deeds. Who is the me? Come. You can just move in a little bit here. Those of you who are sitting there, if you can just scoot in a little bit, just make some room, that would be wonderful. Yeah. Maybe if we can have someone stand at that door and sort of help people as they come in, that would be great. You could just come in. Thanks. There's plenty of room, we just have to make it. So if we can take that step to who is the I that's not the doer? Because let's say if I'm a really good person, and I know I'm a good person, and I'm the doer of good deeds, but then I get really angry. And oh my God, I do something I know I shouldn't have done. I yelled at somebody. Well, who is that? If who I am is a good person, and what I do are good things, and suddenly I yell at someone, I insult someone, I hurt someone, meaning to or not meaning to, either way, who am I then? And you can see the confusion that would bring. And so this is where it's really important to understand I'm neither the doer of good deeds nor the doer of wrong deeds. I'm neither of those. I'm neither the honest one nor the dishonest one. I'm neither the generous one nor the stingy one. Who I am is consciousness. Who I am is soul. Who I am is spirit. And yes, compassion, generosity, goodness, truthfulness, these are all attributes that come with knowing who I am. But then I'm acting in that way not just because it's the right thing to do, but I'm acting in that way because they are attributes of an awareness of who I am. Then I'm acting out of compassion, not just because I'm a good, compassionate, kind, nice person or because I'm going to get some good karma here, but I'm acting out of compassion because you and I are one. And I feel your pain. And I feel your hunger. And I feel your thirst. And that's a completely different way of being, and it's a way of being that is much more fulfilling. Because then it's not so much about what I do or about my personality, which is a good, nice, honest person, but it's about the truth of who I am, which is soul, spirit. And connecting to God is what gives me that. Because when I connect to God, I understand I'm not just this body. I have a felt sense experience of being part of something that is more than what I've identified as myself. And when I have that, then suddenly my entire experience of my life explodes. Because it's no longer just about this. It's suddenly about everything. Or you could say it actually implodes, because it all becomes about the self. Or perhaps it's the place where imploding meets exploding. That it's both. The outer and the inner come together. And so that's where the connection with God is so important. Because it gives us that deeper, true, real meaning to our lives. Which is what it's all about. So I wanted to take, is the young woman who we ended with last night, is she here? Okay, if she comes in, someone let me know. I also then wanted to take the question that you had asked earlier that I said that we would take in satsang. Yes?
So the question was that I've got two boys. We are basically a vegetarian household, and both my boys are meat eaters. And in the family, we have elders who tell them that eating meat is not in our culture, and we should not be eating meat. And what they answer is that why is eating meat not in our culture? Where does it say which Ved of ours, which does Rig Ved, Yajur Ved, does any of the Veds say that eating meat is not good? In the Ramayana and in the Mahabharata that we see, or the Shivji, they say, was Lord Ram killing the deer just for pleasure when he was given the,
Yeah, of
or
course.
does Shivji, he wears all those, he sits on a lion rug and he has all these skulls around him. So is it that they were not eating meat? Is it
Okay.
where does it tell us in our Hindu culture that eating meat is not? So how do you answer? How can we convince these youngsters now?
So first of all, I have to say, I love the younger generation. Those of you who have been in Satsang for a few days will remember when we had the young kids here earlier this week, and who had so many questions. And it's so beautiful because they're really coming from a very true place. They do want to know. They're not trying to be antagonistic. They're not trying to just put dad in a corner. They really want to know, but kids today have got an incredible BS meter. Much more so than previous generations. They really know when you're kind of making it up as you go along. They really know when you don't know exactly what you're saying and you don't really have a foundation for that. And they're going to call you on it, which, especially for Indians, is really brand new. We've got a thousands of year culture, many thousands of year culture. And it's literally been 15, 20 years that kids have the audacity to say to their parents, prove it. Who says so? You know, I mean, even literally going back one generation, people who are middle-aged today could not have dreamed of questioning or even disobeying their parents. Certainly not disobeying, but most of them not even questioning. And most of them are amazed at how are our children asking this. And a lot of times what we get is, my kids have become so rude. They don't listen to anything we say. They don't do anything we tell them to do. They've become so rude. And actually, if you really look at it, what you find in most cases is, it's not disobedience for the sake of being disobedient. It's not rudeness. What it is an educational system that is much more like the one that we have in the West, that is encouraging them to ask questions, encouraging them to be suspicious. Not necessarily suspicious in a negative way, but just not to believe everything that you're told, to question, to wonder why, what's our proof here? We've got a scientific method, let's follow it. Okay, what are the steps? How do we know? And to learn to ask why and how. And again, these are things that are really brand new, because most Indians over the age of, say, 40, when their parents told them to do something, they just said, gee, yes. And never could have imagined asking their parents why. Just out of respect. And so suddenly now these questions from the younger generation feel like it's disrespectful, whereas it really isn't. They're really not trying to be rude at all. They're not trying to be disrespectful. But they do have this very good, as I said, BS meter. And so if they ask a question, and what they get is an answer like, because we say so, because our scriptures say so, because it's not right, because it is right, it no longer works. We're sort of beyond the days of parents, and it's sad. We're, in India, it's just a generation. You're a generation too late to say to them, because I said so. Just do it. But here's what's wonderful. What's wonderful, especially about the Indian spiritual tradition, is because it's thousands and thousands of years of wisdom, and wisdom of something that is what we call dharma rather than dogma. So it's not about lists of do's and don'ts, rights and wrongs. It's about a way of life. The teachings are universal. But what we have to do is have the ability to delve within ourselves and understand, okay, what does that mean today? And so, for example, we talk about the issue, as you've raised, of vegetarianism. Was Lord Ram killing the deer just for pleasure? Of course not. The hunters in the scriptural stories, of course, were hunting for food. They lived at a time, they lived in places where that was how people ate. And there is a very strong teaching of nonviolence. A very strong teaching of respect for all life. A very strong teaching of the divine presence in all beings. A very strong teaching of compassion and love and respect and care for all of the natural world, from the leaves of a tulsi tree to all of the rest of creation. But how that translates today is the question. And so, yes, and I would be happy to sit with you at a different time and pull together lines from the scriptures that talk to us about, how we're supposed to live. But rather than that, I don't want to convince them scripturally. And the reason is, what that would imply is that that's only something that's important for people who consider themselves devout Hindus. And remember, we're talking about Sanatan Dharma as an eternal way of life. It's not a dogma here. Which means that the teachings have to be as applicable for people of every religion. And so if our only recourse is to go to a Hindu scripture and find a line on it, then that makes it very difficult for us to turn around and say, well, but this is eternal and universally applicable. And so what we look for are, okay, today, for all people, what are the reasons? Well, those of you who come a lot will know this is one of my favorite subjects, because vegetarianism is actually the single greatest way that we have in our hands, until and unless any of us has been elected or appointed president or prime minister of a large country or king of the world. It's the greatest way that we have to have an impact on pretty much everything we care about on the planet. World hunger, water. By 2040, the world is going to have only half the water it needs. We will have, by United Nations estimates, between 24 and 700 million water refugees, means people who have to leave their homes due either to rising sea levels, and so their homes will be washed away, or due to lack of water at all to drink, to irrigate the farms, due to water that's too polluted to drink, to use. Minimum 24 million? Up to 700 million? India's going to hit the 50% of the water by 2030. That's basically today. I mean, 11 years, it's nothing. It's now. Hunger, tens of thousands of children are dying every day of starvation. 1 billion people approximately sleep hungry every night. The rainforest is being cut down at the rate of about 1 acre a second. Now the rainforest produces about 20% of the oxygen on Earth. It absorbs about 20% of the carbon dioxide, holds about 20% of the world's fresh water. An acre a second. Why? Yes, cows, exactly. Not oil. Interestingly, most people think oil. Not oil. Cows, beef. The single greatest contributor to global warming, to climate change, is animal agriculture. That means the cows, the pigs, the chickens who are raised to be hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken McNuggets, eggs. That industry of animals as producers of food, single greatest, and again, this is United Nations statistics, single greatest contributor, more than industry, more than transportation. The amount of carbon dioxide that is produced into the atmosphere in the production of 1 pound of beef is the same amount of carbon dioxide that you would secrete if you drove your car morning till night every single day for 3 weeks. So bike to work, sure. Carpool. Take the bus. But if you're going out for hamburgers on your lunch break, your ultimate carbon footprint is very large and very deep and very harmful. The amount of water that goes into the production of a pound of beef is about 10,000 liters, about 2,500 gallons, which is approximately the amount of water that you use bathing every day for 6 months. So ask your children whether they've heard of farmers in India committing suicide because their farms are parched, desiccated, whether they've heard of the water shortage our world is facing. And if so, are they prepared to refrain from bathing for 6 months every time they eat hamburgers? Chicken is about 1/3. So you'd have to refrain from bathing for 2 months in order to offset the water. Hunger? Well, the production of 1 pound of beef takes about 16 pounds of grain. It's about a 16-to-1 ratio. Because what that means is the cow that's giving us beef or the chicken that's giving us chicken lives for several years before we kill it. When it lives, it eats. So the corn, the rice, the soy, the wheat that's being fed to these animals, most of it, the vast majority of it, gets digested, gets pooped out. It's not all turning to fat. By the time the years have gone by and we finally end up killing this animal, turning it into food for us, about 16 pounds of our grain have gone in for every pound of beef we get out. So what that means is, with tens of thousands of children dying of starvation and about 1 billion people sleeping hungry, the question is, do they believe that the universe has granted them the right to eat the food of 15 other people? I don't care what religion you are. I don't care whether you're an atheist who just says, I'm a good person. There is no spiritual tradition I know of, no element of being a good person I know of, that says I deserve the food for 15 other people. Let them starve. I want a hamburger. Now, if you were stranded in the forest, or you lived at an entirely different time, like when Lord Ram lived, And there wasn't animal agriculture. And forests were not being cut down in order to graze cattle that were going to become beef. But the meat that was eaten because people went out on foot or on horses with bows and arrows. And they shot a deer, and they brought it back, and they fed the village for a month. That was not having an impact on anybody's hunger anywhere else in the world. It was not having an impact on the land, the water, the air. It's still violent to the deer, of course. I'm still not sure that I would say I fully approve. But at least what you're dealing with is one life, one deer. Here what we're dealing with is a ripple impact that impacts not just the life of the cow I've killed or the chicken I've killed, but the lives of children who are starving to death. The lives of farmers whose fields are desiccated because there's no water. The lives of people whose land is being cut down. The species that are going extinct because their habitat is being cut down. The number of species that are going extinct in the Amazon, it's terrifying. Why are they going extinct? Because their habitat is being cut down. And so the ripple impact of eating meat today is something entirely different than it was when our societies lived with bows and arrows and people on horses who brought back one animal for a month of food. This is no longer about that. This is an industry. And the industry is an industry that is killing our world. And so you can tell them it's not a religious issue, but that pretty much everything they read in all of the scriptures emphasizes things like compassion and caring, taking care of our planet. Vasudev Kutumbakam, the world is a family, right? So if the world is a family, clearly they would understand that when mom puts a plate of chapatis on the dining table, for either of them to take the entire plate and run off to his room with it would not really be fair game for the rest of the family. That in a family we sit to dinner, we share. One for me, one for you, one for you, one for you. And if we assume that the world is our family, as our scriptures tell us, then in what way am I entitled to take the food of others, to take the water of others, to take the land of others? By no teaching am I. So let them know that, and I'm sure that they will understand. But it brings up another really important issue, though, which is how many of our religious teachings get lost because we don't necessarily know or we haven't thought about how they apply to us today. And this is where it's so important, regardless of what our religion may be, but it's so important to understand that the words of God, whatever language they came to us in, whatever book they are enshrined in, have meanings that transcend the very exact situation in which they were given to us. If it's scripture, it's eternal. But that's not about living our lives according to exactly that situation. Lord Ram shot a deer, so I will go out and shoot a deer. It's not about that. Are they prepared to spend 14 years in the forest just because you say so? Right? I mean, ask him that. Lord Ram did that too. Dad said go, he said yes, sir. But it's about an ethics and a value system that actually applies continually and consistently, but we as the religious people have the courage to look at, okay, well, how does that adapt here? How can that be explained differently? How might that mean something different in my situation, in this culture, in this time, in this land? And to take the core truths without necessarily being so stuck with the specific details of that specific story that may have taken place at one specific time, many thousands of years ago. So we have time for one more question. Yeah, I did, but she is not. Was it your question? Ah, okay. If it's okay with you, I'm going to take this tomorrow just because this is a full page and it's going to take me a little bit of time to read. So I'll get it condensed a little bit for tomorrow, but we'll take this tomorrow. Yes?
During my contemplation, I have come to the conclusion that life teachings are subjective in nature, considering that people are of different personality types. So what would your views be on this subject?
Are our life teachings subjective due to people of different personalities? It depends what the teaching is, of course. But the core truths are the same. Look, the sun is shining. You could put out 100 different vessels of 100 different shapes and 100 different colors, and each of them with 100 different amounts of water in them. And each of these vessels would give you a slightly different image of the reflection of the sun. But the sun is the same. But because the vessel is different, it's going to look slightly different. Put water into 100 different vessels. It's going to take 100 different shapes depending on the shape of the vessel. Right? Pour water into this glass, it's going to become this shape. Pour it into a bucket, it's going to become that shape. Pour it into a thin, narrow bottle, it'll become that shape. But if you take water from my glass, from a bucket, from a thin cylinder, and you look at them all under a microscope, it's going to look exactly the same. There's no way to tell under the microscope, this was bucket water, this was glass water, this was water from the cylinder. Water is the same. And in the same way, truth. We talk in here a lot because the word satsang literally means in the presence of truth. And so we talk a lot in here about what is that truth that's applicable to all, that's not dependent on your race, your religion, your color, your age, your socioeconomic status, your sexual orientation, your gender, your language. What's that truth that actually applies to everyone? And so the truth is not subjective if it's capital T truth. Lowercase t truth, sure, can be objective. I can say to you, oh my God, I think that woman is so beautiful. And you could say to me, oh no, I don't think she's pretty at all. Okay. Everybody's got their right to a different opinion. I could say to you, oh, this food is much too spicy. My God, I'm sweating out of my head. This is horrible. You could say, it's perfect. Sumptuous. I love spicy food. Okay, so that truth is subjective. Is this dish good or not? Is it too spicy or not spicy enough? Subjective truth. Depends who's tasting it. Is that woman pretty? Is that man handsome? Subjective truths. But the capital T truth, the real truth, that's not subjective at all. That's one. But yeah, it's manifest in different ways in different people, in different times. So again, we were just talking about the example of Lord Ram in the Ramayana. He lives as the epitome of Dharma. Lord Ram embodies goodness, Dharma, a dharmic son, a dharmic king, a dharmic brother. But what he did, actually his exact actions were due to the time and place. They were due to his role as king. There's no teaching that says, go out, leave your wife in the forest, right? But it was right for him. It all has to do with the situation. You know, one of my favorite teachings, and I'll end here with this, brings us into this situation. So when we talk about truth and we talk about rightness, going back to the Ramayana here for a moment, because it gives us a really beautiful example. So we have a situation, for those of you not familiar with the story, we have a situation of a king who has a son, Ram, who's about to be coronated as king. His son Ram is already the epitome of goodness. The people of the land of Ayodhya love him. He is goodness, dharma, integrity, perfection embodied. On the day of his coronation, his stepmother, and there's a lot of pieces here, I won't go into all of them, but his stepmother goes to the king, her husband, and says, basically, you owe me a favor. And he did. There was a different story associated with that, but he did. And she said, I want it today. Today what I want from you is, instead of Ram being coronated, I want my son Bharat, to be coronated as the king. And Lord Ram should be, or she didn't call him Lord, Ram should be sent into the jungle in exile for the next 14 years. Now you imagine this father, good king, good man, what he must have been going through. But he had made a promise to his wife that whatever she asked, that he owed her these two promises. And he was not going to go back on his word. And so he did it. Okay? Now, we stop there for just a moment and we analyze. We say, oh my God, well, where's the integrity here? Where's the Dharma here? What had Ram ever done? Ram was a great guy. Even if we don't necessarily say Lord, even if we don't necessarily believe him as God, he was a great guy. Nobody could point a finger at anything wrong he did. How did he deserve? Makes no sense. In order for it to make sense, and I give this story as an example because when we're talking about the truth being subjective, it's not. It's just that we don't always have the full story. So we step back a bit to get a bigger picture, and you come to a story that's seemingly not related, but actually it's very related, of which we even have a statue as you walk through our central gardens of Parmarth. And the statue is of a young man whose name is Shravan Kumar, and he's carrying his parents on what looks like one of those old scales. And his mom is sitting on one end, and his father's sitting on the other end, and he's carrying it. And the story of Shravan Kumar goes that his parents were blind. And in Indian tradition, going on sacred pilgrimage is what everyone should do. It's considered essential to life. One must, at some point in one's life, undertake a sacred pilgrimage. But they couldn't because they were blind. And so Shravan Kumar, as this, again, an embodiment of just goodness, a good son, takes his blind parents on pilgrimage by literally carrying them. They stop along the way. He puts his parents in a shelter to rest. He goes to the river to collect water for them. At the time that he is collecting water, Lord Ram's father, the king, Lord Ram was not born yet at that time, is out hunting. He hears a noise. He thinks it's a deer. He fires his arrow. That arrow hits Shravan Kumar when he's gone to collect water. The king comes. Now remember, the king was a good man. We'll excuse the fact that he was hunting and assume that he was going to feed the village for a month. But he comes and he sees Shravan Kumar. And he's devastated. Oh my God, what have I done? But Shravan Kumar's life is trickling out of him very quickly. And the king is just bereft, as you can imagine. And Shravan Kumar says, look, there's nothing you can do for me, but my parents are in this shelter. They're waiting for me. They're blind. They're thirsty. Please, take this water to them. Tell them what has happened so they don't end up dying waiting for me in the middle of the forest. Now the king, who up until this point, by the way, separate aspect of the story, had not been able to have children. He had tried, had not been able to have progeny, which, as you can imagine, as a king is essential because who's going to take over the kingdom? Okay. So the king walks into where Shravan Kumar's parents are sitting. And the parents call from the distance, Shravan Kumar! Shravan Kumar, you've come back. Now the king has no voice. Right? What's he going to say? So he's quiet. Again, the parents call out, Shravan Kumar, have you come? Why are you not speaking? Finally, the king, with very, very heavy heart, has to tell these parents what he has done. Now, in Indian tradition, there is a belief that really what matters to God is the purity of one's heart. That the holy beings are those whose hearts are very pure and devoted. It's not about what is your stature in society. It's not about how much money you have. It's about the purity of your heart. And so Shravan Kumar's parents, as very pure, holy people, had the power to bless and the power to curse. That power is given to those who are of very pure heart. And so after the king has told them this story, Shravan Kumar's parents curse him. And they curse him with the curse of, just as today, we are dying of a broken heart due to the loss of our son, so someday you will die of a broken heart due to the loss of your son. Now that curse had to become true because it was spoken from the purity of heart. Now you look how now all of these things come together, right? So now suddenly the king had to have children, had to have sons. Now suddenly the stepmother calling in her promise, it's all just part of a whole karmic tapestry of so many individual threads that are woven together. Lord Ram had to be sent out because his father had to suffer and die from the breaking of his heart in the same way that he had caused to Shravan Kumar's parents. So the whole thing suddenly becomes an essential part of the karmic package. And of course, if we took the whole Ramayana, we'd end up with thousands of other individual karmic threads that weave together to give us a package of truth. But if we pull any individual thread and we try to hold it up to the light and say, okay, where is the eternal truth of this one thread? You cannot. And so it seems subjective. In order to understand that it's not subjective, in order to understand it, you've got to have the entirety of it. Like if I say to you, this is the same as the bucket that's full in my bathroom. This is the same as your swimming pool, minus the chlorine. This is the same as the river. This is the same. You'd say to me, no, it's not. That's not true. And it's not true as isolated threads. This is absolutely not the same as the water in the bucket in my room. On the individual level of that subjective thread. But when I step back, or when I step in deeply, and we start looking at essence, well, of course it is. The essence is the same. It's all one. The essence is water. Ultimately, it's all ocean. Some of it evaporated, was carried by the clouds, it came down as rain. Ultimately, it landed in my glass. Some is coming out of my tap. But it's all one. In the same way, that truth is being embodied and played out in different ways. But ultimately, that truth is one. But we just don't necessarily always have the clarity of vision to be able to see it. Okay, does that make sense? Good. Wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. Yeah.